Here's the challenge. I'll have 24 hours to remake a minigame and turn it into a full game. By the end of the 24 hours, I'll have a pretty fun game, shop system, AI, and co-op features, while only using C# and the Unity game engine. Okay, before I start, what are minigames? Minigames are smaller games inside a larger game. This larger game can include up to 50 or even hundreds of smaller games. But why would anyone do that? Well, each minigame contains a small game mechanic that is completely unique from the others. When you zoom out and look at the whole game, it's really diverse. This is what makes Mario Party, Wii Sports, and Club Penguin so fun. Okay, well, what minigame am I going to create? Hosted by the Devlog Club, I was able to create one minigame in Mario Party. There were 50 minigames and I picked Tightrope Treachery. Now, I know, even though this may not be the best option, it's one of the easiest to make, so that means I can spend more time experimenting around with it. Okay, let's start up Unity, create a 3D project, and start working. The main challenge is to get this minigame into a full game. For now, my ideas are rather simple. First, I want a shop system so the player has an incentive to keep playing, and yeah, that's about it. In the game Tightrope Treachery, the main character is walking on a tightrope over an ocean. So I began working on making the tightrope in water. It doesn't look like much for now, but I'll have to get to that later. Well, this game is, again, extremely elementary. So I had an idea. How about making a hyper-casual game? You've probably seen those despicable.io game ads where it's just like either completely unrelated to the game or it's like my mom, my dad. It's hilarious and yeah, that's a hyper-casual game. Usually these games are easy to play, free to play, and also feature very minimalistic user interfaces. And that's exactly what a minigame is. Easy to pick up and it's super simple. Therefore, we can transform this minigame into a full game with some hyper-casual techniques. But I have no idea how to even start making a hyper-casual game, so to find out what tricks lie beneath the hyper-casual games, I decided to play a couple of them. So I ended up wasting an hour on .io games. What I noticed is that each of these games are very addictive. For example, Hole.io, a seemingly simple yet unique mechanic of eating things turned into an hour of me trying to consume the entire map and unlocking unique skins while beating other players. Using these techniques, I was able to garner more ideas for my game. Firstly, there was Simplistic Art. Other games like Crowd City, Aquapark.io all feature this polygon type character. With simplistic art style, the player isn't overwhelmed by the simplistic nature of the game. Second, they all had amazing AI. None of these games I played had real multiplayer, yet I felt like these bots were real. And finally, there were tons of ads. I mean tons of them. Considering I'm not a greedy developer, I won't be adding this. You know, there are other ways you can support the cause. After wasting a whole hour, I decided to get some simplistic art. I found some awesome low poly character on Sketchfab and then imported it into Unity. In my game, the player has two animation states. One if the player is walking on the tightrope, and another if the player is in action of falling. Luckily, Mixamo has plenty of pre-made animations that I can use. Let's just take that. After finishing the player, it was time to set up the environment. I found a great water shader along with some textures in the Unity asset store, so let's just take that as well. The game art looks fantastic, but nothing works right now. Oh goodness. Well, now I have to make things work. In the original Mario Party minigame, there are random periods of time in which the tightrope moves left and right. To make this tightrope actually function, I programmed a script to change the animation of the rope 0.25 units to the right and left after a random time. Looks like the player is having a hard time understanding gravity. To fix this, I'm going to have to add a box glider and a rigid body with all the constraints checked on. Adding the rigid body and the box glider allows the player to interact with other physics objects in the scene like the tightrope and air. I also added strafing so the player can stay on the tightrope and some movement code alongside this method which checks if the player is off the rope, and if so, the constraints get checked off, leading to some funny results. Wait, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Okay, admittedly, that took way longer than I originally anticipated. Good thing this is a simple game. It's time to make some enemies. Mario Party games are intended to be co-op, but honestly, this game is better with AI. But how am I going to make it? Luckily, Unity has its own AI library which has built-in functions for avoiding objects and moving to locations. First, there's a thing called navmesh, which stores the surface as a polygon. Then the AI agent will use an algorithm to find the end location via the polygons using the A* algorithm, which will find the endpoint very quickly. I use this knowledge to make a boat that moves to a random location for a random time, rotates toward the player, shoots a cannonball, moves to another location, rotates toward the player, shoots a cannonball, and repeats. We've got that box checked off. The AI looks like a human now with totally no bugs. Okay, the game is functional now, with enemies, a working tightrope, and a player, but it's incredibly boring. A way to fix this is to add infinite generation. In the original game, the game is finite, meaning that there's a defined start and end point. But in this game, there is no end point, giving me an opportunity to add a score system, which might be useful later on. Okay, it's finally time to make the menu and the supposed shop system. Remember that score system I implemented? I'm using that to correlate the coins and the shop items so you're able to purchase your shop items with your coins. Basically, those checks if the player is off the rope. Yeah, I added a extension for every balance point you get, so at the end you might be a bit too powerful for the game to handle. Next is agility points. This will give you extra strafe speed, so if you need any last minute adjustments, you can save yourself from utter disaster. Okay, admittedly the entire game took a lot longer than I expected, but now we have a menu, an official gameplay loop, and 2 hours remaining. What I did for the last 2 hours is setting up a itch.io page with a link will be in the description. And that's the 24 hours. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video where I make a game in 7 days, or check out this video where I make a game in 48 hours.